Good afternoon. This is Dr. David back with another action-packed episode of Fresh Start with Dr. David. So it's good to be back. It has been a minute since you've heard me. I think on average, I get an episode done about once every 30 days, sometimes a little bit faster, but I think that's kind of the general gist of my frequency of getting an episode done, and that's fine. If I get one done every 30 days, that's one a month, that's 12 a year. I used to do, 30 episodes a year, something like that, but I've been pretty busy lately, so that kind of changes things. But here's the thing, the focus is different. I used to do a lot of really, really long, intense, hour-long episodes. I'd have guests and talk about a lot of different things, but now kind of the focus on my podcast is little things that you can do to change things. So I look at the big picture, I look at little things as well, and I kind of hone in on things instead of comprehensively covering a topic because of a number of reasons. To me, it's a lot easier for me to record, a 10-minute segment or a 10-minute episode, a short little episode on a topic, kind of hit the big points rather than to organize having a guest on and coordinating with their schedule and their assistant and researching things and all that kind of stuff. So what I do is basically I give you in my podcast, Fresh Start with Dr. David, pearls and nuggets and things like that, which I think will help you move forward and kind of make some decisions. So I try to go back and forth between the micro and the macro, right? The micro being the big, the small picture or the details, right? The minutia, if you go further enough. And then the big picture, right? Which is the big ideas, the big goals, the big objectives, what you really want, why it matters, how you do it, all those kind of things. So I try to go back and forth because that's what life requires you to do. It requires you to go back and forth between the details and the big picture, right? Business requires you to do that. School should require you to do that. Life certainly will require you to do that. And you're going to be better suited to be successful, to compete with others, and to be happy and healthy if you're able to go back and forth between the big picture and the small details. So, if I wanted to use an analogy for that, and if you are a regular listener of the podcast, you know that I love the use of analogies. I love the use of analogies. I also like the use of metaphors. And, part of the reason why is because people use analogies and metaphors to paint pictures, to take words and to make it into reality by giving you a description that you can see or that you can experience out in real life. And so that's one of the reasons why I think reading has always been a huge thing for me, and people who are able to tell stories, whether it's in a movie or whether it's Charles Dickens or whether it's Shakespeare. I would probably say Shakespeare probably did it best. But the reason why what they do in that art of writing, and part of why I wrote my books, is so powerful because they have the ability to take something in words or take something in speech and make it real. And if, you can choose to turn whatever it is into a play or a movie or something and like that to make it even more real in the case of things like Shakespeare's plays and things like that. But the power of it is to take a thought, an idea, a feeling, an emotion, and to turn it into something everybody can see and feel and understand. And that's the power of language. That's the power of writing. That's the power of reading. That's the power of communication. And like I said, I would have to say that people like Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe, and I could go down the list of writers who did it best, Charles Dickens, and a significant number of female writers as well who did it well. I would say that Sigmund Freud did a very, very good job of it, especially when it comes to self-defense mechanisms, which is a large basis of my practice, and its psychoanalytic, psychodynamic approach to helping people get to the root cause of issues and problems. So I love to use metaphors and I love to use analogies, and it's my strong belief, which is one of the topics of today's podcast, that the more you can dig into yourself to find solutions to challenges that present themselves, the better off you're going to be, the happier you're going to be, the more competent you're going to be. And that depends or is predicated upon your ability to go back and forth between little things that happen in the big picture and the relationships between those two, right? And it's just like, a computer or anything else, right? You've got your mouse that you use, you've got your keyboard. Those are input sources. Those are ways for you to communicate with the GUI, the graphic user interface, which is either Windows or Mac or, whatever it is that you use. And the processors, the mechanisms within your computer that allow you to manipulate objects, data, or communicate with websites and things like that, right? So, and everything in between. So, in order for a computer to work and for you to get some use out of a computer, there's an interaction. If you're trying to communicate with your bank or withdraw money or move money or invest in the stock market or do something else, pay a bill, whatever it is, download a song, wherever the source of that information is, that data is, whether it's a bank or a server and the cloud, wherever it is, there are a lot of millions of little things that happen in between the time that you go to a website and put in your credentials and that money being available in your account or being transferred somewhere else or whatever else. There's millions of little things. And the more you're able to successfully go back and forth between those things, the better you're going to be able to be successful, right? And to be efficient and productive. And that's why I believe that when you work on yourself, when you address an issue, something that's long-standing or something that's recent in yourself that you want to change, whether it's procrastination, putting off things, frustration, anger management, and you'll find out in a few minutes why I brought that up. But anything else, addiction, you've got to dig deep. And by knowing what the big picture is, as well as the details, everything in between, you're able to dig deep. When I use or drill baby drill, if you want to say that, but you've got to drill baby drill into yourself and get to the root causes of things. And I like to use the analogy of a plant. as if you see my Facebook pages, I'm a huge lover of plants and animals, especially animals, but I like plants too. But, I'm a big believer in nature and what has been made available to us for us to hopefully enjoy, but also I believe we should be learning from it, right? The animals, the plants, we should be learning from them, not just exploiting them. And if you've got a plant or a tree that's diseased or ill or dying or stagnating or any of those things, the one thing that you can influence, this is like a test question, an SAT question or MCAT question or whatever, but the biggest influence that you can make on that plant or that tree is at the roots, right? You could do something at the level of the branch or the level of the leaf or the level of the fruit or the foliage or branch or, whatever you want to do, twig. But the biggest difference you can make for the whole system is at the root. And that's true of us as well. And at our roots, we have, I believe, we should have values, beliefs, and then we should have a purpose, right? And the purpose is, why am I here? Why do I exist, right? That's the big thing that people talk about with AI, that AI doesn't have that thing that we had, that oomph, that je ne sais quoi, that gives you a reason to go out and do different things, right? For humans, I believe some of it's due to our beliefs and our values. And then we also have, a core purpose, or you should have one. And that's what is so important because that allows you to dig. Regardless of what you want to be in life, whether you want to be an engineer or a neurosurgeon or a psychiatrist, or you want to be a therapist or an airline pilot or a truck driver or whatever it is, a computer programmer, whatever you want to be, there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some tough times, and you've got to dig deep in order to make it through those. So digging, in my opinion, is one of the biggest things that helps predict whether you're going to be successful in your endeavors or not. And your ability to dig is what allows you to not feel like an imposter. It's what allows you to move past challenges and obstacles, what allows you to maintain drive, motivation, to be dynamic and flexible and adaptable in challenging circumstances, things like that, right? And to have a core level of self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, self-value, the ability to be self-determined, self-actualization, the ability to actualize or create in the real world what you see and feel and think on the inside. All of those things are important, but you've got to be able to dig. If you want to be successful in life, if you want to be resilient, if you want to be empowered, if you want to be formidable, if you want to be all of those things, performative, you've got to do that. When people come to me, and I had a new client who came in today for their first discovery appointment, and he, like a lot of other people, he presented with a lot of different things that he wants to fix. And one of the big things that I ask myself when I have a problem, but I also ask my clients when they come in, and this isn't something that I just came up with on my own, although I do think about it a lot, and I probably thought about it even before I read some of the things that Milton Erickson and Sigmund Freud and Lacan, some of those guys would ask their clients. But I ask these two questions to my clients, but I also ask them to myself when I need to fix something. What are you willing to do to change your circumstances? How deep are you willing to dig? How much are you willing to spend? How much in terms of energy and time? How much are you willing to invest? And then the other question is the exact opposite. What are you unwilling to do to change your circumstances? That starts you on a path. When you ask those two questions, that starts to narrow things down, right? Because one is at one extreme and the other one's at the other, right? One's really macro and the other one's micro, right? But you've got to be able to go back and forth of those. And you've got to, whenever you have a problem, you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to do to solve this problem? And I'll throw out a common analogy and then I'll mention a couple of things and then wrap up. You know, if you, let's say, okay, I'll throw out one that's relevant to me. What if there's a charge on your bank account, on your debit card, and you didn't authorize it, right? And you're like, what is this? Why is it there? And then you find out, let's say it's a charge for 5 cents, right? And it shouldn't be there. You didn't authorize it. You didn't, but it doesn't seem to be a systemic thing. It's not ongoing. You don't think there's fraud or whatever. It's just a mistake or whatever. Then you have to ask yourself, okay, especially in today's time where there's zero customer service anywhere, except in my office, of course. There's no customer care. There's no customer support. There's no customer service. It's a huge hassle to get anything fixed. What am I willing to do in terms of getting this 5-cent charge off my bank account? Probably I would say nothing. I wouldn't do anything about it at all. I'd maybe report it to the bank and let it go, put it in writing. That way, if anything else happens in the future, it's not just your responsibility, it's also the bank's, but I would leave it alone. Now, if somebody takes out $5,000, then that's a different story. That's a bigger problem, at least in my budget. Maybe for some people, $5,000 missing is not a big deal, but that's a pretty big deal when it comes to my bank account, especially checking. So you've got to decide, what am I going to do to fix this problem, right? That's what you've got to do before you even come up with solutions. Is this a problem worth fixing? And what am I willing to do to fix it? I'm not willing to do much of anything to fix an accidental or incidental 5-cent charge on my account. I'm going to let it go and not worry about it. I might notate it, but that's it. I'm done. 5,000, that's a different story. There's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to do. So the question to ask yourself, if you've got a problem, what are you willing to do to fix that problem? And what are you unwilling to do? And then when people answer that question, when they come in my office or when they ask themselves, that's what tells me whether they're willing to do the work at my office. And I was telling the client who came in today, I turn a lot of people away. A lot of people come to my office and I can tell from the very beginning that they are not willing to do the work. If they're not willing to do the work, then you know what? Let me forward you to a psychiatrist and they can just give you a pill that'll do the work for you. Now, of course, there's a price I believe you're going to pay on the back end for that, right? If you're going to have Adderall do the work for you when you can't focus and concentrate instead of you digging deep and building drive and motivation and the ability to resist distractions and impulse control and all those kind of things that you would have to do, then that's fine. That's your choice. You know what I mean? But if you want to fix ADHD from a holistic standpoint, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, or you want to drink less, or you want to quit smoking or whatever, you got to be able to dig deep. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're probably not a good fit for my practice. I really, really, really do pick and choose who I take on as a client because I want to produce success stories. I want to see people grow and thrive. And if they can't do that in my office, then I try to find them some other solution somewhere else where they can do that. And that brings me to an upcoming event that I have. So, as you know, I recently started doing monthly events for guided meditation and hypnosis sessions. I believe in the concept of group energy and group therapy and quantum energy, right? And so I think that people learn from each other. And I know some of the circumstances that I've learned best from a mental health standpoint, from an identity standpoint, is going to a group where other people are undergoing some of the things or same things that I'm undergoing, and how they approach it and how they deal with it. And that helped me to deal with it, right? So I did want to share that I do have an upcoming event. It's going to be one on something I think that's very, very relevant to us today, especially in America. And that's the concept of anger management. Everybody I know seems to shoot off the handle. Every news story is about somebody who did something wacky or crazy, or they got revenge, or they were angered and frustrated, or they lost it. They went to from 0 to 180 or whatever. And I think that anger is a big problem. So I'm doing a series, an anger management series that will happen over the next 4 months. It'll be every one Saturday per month. And you can find the details of it by checking me out on Facebook. And not only that, but you get 86% off. So by being a part of a group and using group energy and group synergy, right? And group momentum, you get a huge discount. So it's only $250, which this is probably the biggest discount I've ever given. But considering the way that the economy is right now, it's probably called for. So you get 8 hours worth of sessions, plus you get a free 360-degree session at my office, and you get subliminals and paraliminals to help you improve upon your anger and impulse control and things like that. So check that out. The first one will be in person at my office, my main office in Sandy Springs. It will be on November the 1st of this year. So, and then there'll be one a month for the next 3 months after that, for a total of 4. I am also starting an ADHD program, a series that will also be 4 classes on dealing with ADHD, moving past the symptoms, gaining attention, gaining focus and clarity, eliminating distractions, things like that. And I'll also be doing one on anxiety and panic. So stay tuned for those. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out my main practice website at Atlanta Holistic Mental Health and Wellness. That's www.A as in Apple, H as in health, M as in mental, H as in health, W as in web.com. So that's www.ahmhw.com, and check out some of the past episodes. But the main point of this one is, if you've got a problem, small, big, medium, in between, before you find a solution to the problem, start your journey by asking, what am I willing to do to change this circumstance? And what am I unwilling to do? And that's going to help you in guiding you on the right course to start to either fixing that problem or just letting it go. And with that, I'm out. You have a great weekend. Hopefully it won't take as long for the next episode, but for me, it's about not the quantity of episodes that I do, but the quality of them. So part of what I want to do is give as much as I can within a short period of time. And this one has lasted 20 minutes, which is a little bit longer, but I think I covered a lot of stuff. But your values, your beliefs, your purpose, those things matter. Your principles, your daily practices, those things matter. What you're willing to do to fix a problem matters. What you're unwilling to do to fix it, and the things you're able to do in life in order to dig deep to find solutions, That truly matters. And that's a part of your core that drives you, that gives you motivation. It makes you dynamic or non-dynamic. It makes you adaptable or non-adaptable. And it makes you flexible or unflexible or inflexible. And those things matter. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.